Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happenstance into this incredible dialogue with the one and only William K. Black. We are recording this on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025 at approximately 5:20 p.m. on Central Standard Time on the eve of the No Kings rally. And I am so grateful for your time this afternoon, Bill, because not a we can't lose any time on getting what we need to speak to the public about, and that we're going to have an opportunity here over the next little while to lay out a plan that we intend to have in front of the No Kings rally across the country. But if you've watched these ongoing Truth Bomb riffs on my channel as well as the New Untouchables channel, you of course know who William K. Black is. But for those of you just discovering this, William K. Black is someone that I hope millions of us will be paying attention to in short order. Obviously, many know who you are, Bill, but I'm just going to do a slight introduction here. Mr. Black originally, I think, is most well known for his time as a regulator during the savings and loan crisis. He wrote a subsequent book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. He worked with his colleagues, Mr. Selby, as well as Ed Gray and others, to do unbelievable work on behalf of the American people during the savings and loan crisis to eventually indict over 7,000 white collar high level executives, elite executives against all
Not
odds.
indict, convict.
I'm so sorry. That is the most important point of all. Convict. And I am all over the place today because unfortunately there's so much I want to get to because so much is flying at us. But thank you for that. But just know that Mr. Black and his colleagues, our colleagues that we have gathered to create a group that we call the New Untouchables, that are making their services available to do what they've done in the past, really over the course of the last 3 decades, to offer the United States, the people of America, an option that we all must hear. But before we get going, I want to set the table just briefly on a couple of things that are happening right now, just because I'm sure they're top of mind for a lot of people. Bill, right before I push play on this, and I think the reason I'm a little bit out of sorts is I was aware of these recordings because I've heard them in my social media over the course of the last month or so. But I've spent about the last hour delving into speeches by White House Director Stephen Miller, Chief of Staff, I'm sorry, of course, Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, and others, that when you really take, I'd say their collective message over the course of the last month is that we're coming for you. Anybody who's not us. And they've demonstrated it in so many ways. We've seen obviously ICE in the streets of Chicago and Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., the National Guard, and everything that's come down the pike really over the course of the last many months. But this is next level. And at a time where obviously, I just saw also Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. I was about to say Bill Johnson, Mike Johnson, message that everybody who is showing up for No Kings is Hamas, which is absolutely absurd. But you put all of that into the additional construction of understanding of this seems like this never-ending flood the zone strategy in the midst of we've seen boats in the Caribbean, Venezuela, presumably drug runners that I believe 25 so far people have been killed in attacks that we don't know exactly what they are. There's no evidence. It's just another day in the book. We know that over 1,200 people have been disappeared from the lakes of so-called Alligator Alcatraz, and so on down the pike. And it's just, it's an America that many of us don't recognize. It's an America that many of us can't comprehend. So I wonder if you could maybe start by giving us an overview on kind of your thoughts as you watch all of this unfold.
Sure. We can't control directly what Trump does, although we can, fight back about a number of these things. But the best defense is a good offense. And we have the ability to go on offense in the best traditions of America for the best traditions of Americans, with the best of us, the whistleblowers, the ones that have not failed the test, right? Trump wants to intimidate you before you do anything. He wants to terrorize you. That's why you have all of these threats. The whistleblowers are the ones who have passed that test. they not only were not intimidated, they've actually come out, almost always given up their governmental job or been fired from it for doing the right thing and gone public, explaining exactly what's being done. And whistleblowers have a number of unique benefits. They were insiders. They heard and they read the sleazy stuff. They know where the documents are. They know what conversations they've heard. So when they make public what happened, if these Justice Department officials say, no, no, you're lying, I never said that, the whistleblowers will often have documents demonstrating the lie. This, by the way, could be of enormous benefit to all these intimidation suits. Because if we can establish that these government officials are liars in any case, we can use that fact in every case where they seek to lie and intimidate. Whistleblowers are not something we have to wait for a midterm election and hope that Trump hasn't rigged it in the Supreme Court so badly that the Democrats cannot win. And even if the Democrats were to win, they could only practically probably win the House and just barely. And a number of the Democrats won't really be Democrats, as we have seen. So you'll just have something by the barest margin. You won't be able to enforce any subpoenas against the government officials. Why pin all our hopes on this thing that can't happen for over 18 months and might not ever happen when we know that we have over 1,000 whistleblowers who have come forward out of this administration, many of whom are eager to testify. Now, many of them can't testify yet because there are non-disclosure agreements. This is part of Trump's campaign of silencing the whistleblowers, prosecuting the whistleblowers and such. But any state legislature, committee of any state legislature, and virtually any state attorney general, and I think it's actually any state attorney general, can subpoena the testimony of the whistleblowers, and that will bust through the cover up of the non disclosure agreement, and they will be able to testify. And indeed, the Trump efforts to keep them from testifying, to cover up what was being done, will be part of the story. Human beings don't react so much to statistics. I think Democrats should have learned this by now. Democrats love to talk about statistics and such. We relate to human beings and their narratives, their story about their lives. And we have the absolute best people in the world on every plane, the most ethical, the bravest, the people that love America the most. And of course, Trump is trying to brand anybody that opposes him, as you say, Hamas and Antifa and such. We've got the salt of the earth folks, the very definition of what it meant when it was a matter of pride to be an American. The people that did the right thing despite all the efforts to silence them. And we have them by the hundreds. So the state legislatures, now as a practical matter, needn't be partisan. I welcome Republican legislators holding hearings as well in the states that they control, either their House or their Senate. But the Democrats assuredly can do this, and they can do this in dozens, scores, in fact, of legislative committees. Have this ability, and they can do it tomorrow. They can win the votes, get the subpoenas, and they can do the scheduling. And the scheduling could be, within a week. You could be doing this immediately. And by the way, American people hate corruption by the powerful folks who abuse their trust to steal from us. And corruption doesn't just take money, corruption kills. When they take away the Medicare, when the rural hospitals close, when they take away the disease protections and such, people die. So we have the most compelling stories that can possibly be told, that can be told in person by the folks who are knowledgeable, who fought the fight to protect the American people and were pushed out of the government or fired from the government precisely because they were honest, precisely because they cared about the American people. And we can put those stories first in front of all of these legislative committees with complete television coverage and such, and in front of state attorney generals. But that's just the first step. Because once you busted through the non-disclosure agreements, they'll be able to just present what the heck happened. And they could do this not through any political groups, but through all kinds of American groups, including social media, your local club, and such can invite a whistleblower to come and explain exactly what happened. And again, it ain't going to be some dry story with a ton of statistics. It's going to be a first person story of bravery and of betrayal by this king. But it isn't just going to be betrayal by the king. We can't focus only on we need no kings. We need no robber barons. Look, it's obvious to everyone that Trump doesn't really run things, right? It is the robber barons who bought his way into the White House and who buy his decisions, and they know in advance often what those decisions will be, and they're able to trade and make billions, pretty soon tens of billions of dollars through this corrupt thing. When, you know, wouldn't it be nice when you did trades in the stock market if you knew what the administration was about to announce that was going to move the market in a few hours? When people about talking about taco trades, they haven't made the point explicit. People actually know what's going to happen. And when I say people, I mean the robber barons who put Trump in power through their massive political contributions. So we can expose all of these things with the best possible people who were often direct witnesses, often have the key documents. And when the Trumpers lie, and you know they're going to lie and say none of this happened, we will discredit those Trumpers such that whenever they try to abuse their power by arresting Americans and such, we'll be able to introduce that these people are proven liars and get discovery as lawyers that can create an entire symphony, right? Not just a little stanza of music, a building, mountainous symphony of these incredible disclosures by the best of us in America, this crop of whistleblowers. And we have the support of the world's premier whistleblowing entity, GAP, Government Accountability Project, and its head. And Lewis is the top person in the world that's been doing this for 40 years, folks, running the premier organization, not just in America, but in the world for whistleblowers. So we're not going to out whistleblowers who want to stay private. It's only the folks that are willing to take that additional step. And America has more elite whistleblowers than the rest of the world combined. And Trump has produced the world's largest surge in whistleblowers. And as he increasingly fires federal employees and takes away their pay and tries to make them work for free, like indentured servants, the number of whistleblowers is skyrocketing. We can fight back with no violence, with the truth. We can put them into positions where they will lie and discredit themselves. And by the way, if you care about the November elections, the midterm elections, this would be the best possible way to win them, right? And you're going to have to win big because Trump is going to try to destroy any real democracy in the midterm elections. So Americans are not going to simply have to take back their government. They're going to have to take it back by an enormous majority of people turning out to the polls. So this is something not us really old folks, not the big media, but social media, local groups, church groups, whatever your groups are, bring the whistleblowers in. Bring them in every district in the United States of America and have them tell their stories. But first, we need the states to act. And it's a win-win for the states, the committees where the Democrats have control, right? This is good politics from their standpoint. It's good personally from the standpoint of the politician. But they would be doing for once the Lord's work, God forbid, instead of their own work, in freeing up the whistleblowers. And then we can create this building, boiling mass of whistleblowers telling the American people exactly how the lies are being done, how it threatens the life of your children and grandchildren, and how they were forced out of the government because they would not lie and they would not stand idly by while these policies killed your kids and your grandchildren. There is nothing preventing this from being done immediately, as in starting next week. This would be easy for any committee chair in any state where there's a Democratic majority. And again, I invite the Republicans to hold these hearings as well and invite the whistleblowers, as long as it's not a scam to attack the whistleblowers, right? Do your job. Tell the truth for once. Bring out the best of us in America. We all know how weak the leadership of the Democratic Party has been, how they have failed the test of courage. We can bring you men and women who all had the same common denominator. They all aced the test of their lives. When things became terrible, when they had to lose their job, their income, put their families potentially at risk for America, they said, America is worth it. I will come forward. Why are we waiting? Why are the state legislatures waiting on a midterm federal election? That is insane. Let's stop being insane. We have been dealt a fabulous winning hand. It's a laydown, but you got to play the game. You got to ante up. And we're asking so little. These hearings don't require any courage on the part of the state legislators, except in one way. Again, whistleblowers are overwhelmingly nonpartisan. They found terrible things under Democratic administrations as well as Republican administrations. But It's vastly worse now. But that testimony could be embarrassing to a number of the robber barons and to some of the Democratic leaders. And that's the only reason I can think of why these hearings, why hundreds of these hearings haven't already occurred. So again, we don't need very much from the Democratic chairs in the state committees and the attorney generals. Just hold the hearings, work with the Government Accountability Project, bring forth the whistleblowers who are eager to testify and to tell the truth to the American people. And doing the right thing, God forbid in this case, is superb politics.
Yeah, and you've been down this road before. I mean, the first thing that I want to comment on, Bill, that was really something. First and foremost, you mentioned that the Democrats are really kind of holding out, and this, kind of reminds me of all the things I've heard from James Carville early, right? Wait it out, let Trump hang himself. The American people will come around, and we'll have, the momentum, and we'll get people into the positions. But of course, you look at all of uh, the polls out there, and Democrats, considering how horrible it is, aren't really polling incredibly well, first and foremost. Second of all, we happen to see, of course, California Senator Adam Schiff being interviewed by Lawrence O'Donnell last week, where he commented, "Yeah, we just need to win back the House. Once we win the House, we'll have subpoena power." And as you've just so eloquently and so passionately delivered, we don't have that kind of time. And I think we're all aware of that. I mean, from the beginning of Doge to
Yeah, but it's
go ahead.
worse than that, Patrick.
Yeah,
If the theory is then we'll have subpoena power, that means then we'll do the strategy we can do now.
right,
But first,
exactly.
we wait 2 years and maybe we don't even succeed
No
in
way.
that election.
No
Whereas
way.
we already have the ability, we don't have to win any
Right,
elections to
right here,
follow
right
this
now.
strategy. It's insane on their own premise.
Exactly. So
If
let's
the key is to get subpoena authority, we have subpoena authority. Use it.
and I want to remind the viewers, and for those of you who've watched this, you need to like and subscribe and share, and you need to get this out there as far and wide as you possibly can, especially our newfound friends that are involved with Indivisible and No Kings and everything else. Because look, let's reset the table. First of all, I had the great fortune to address the Salt Lake City No Kings back in June, where I rolled out our program. And the first thing that you were calling for was we had the opportunity then to subpoena none other than Elon Musk. Now, obviously, the Supreme Court, is talking about quid pro quo and all of these different elements, and yet here was Elon Musk with the breakup, providing information that was obviously things that the state legislatures could use to move forward to subpoena Elon Musk. And here we are many, many months later, and has the problem gotten better or worse? We can all see how bad this is getting. We know exactly what's going on. I wonder if you can pick up there just to kind of drive home the point of there is no time.
Yeah, in addition to the more recent governmental whistleblowers, there are things like a very senior female executive at Meta, Zuckerberg, who has all the facts on Zuckerberg, where they are seeking to suppress her book, where they tried to bankrupt her for trying to make these things public, right? That's because of those non-disclosure agreements and the lack of a subpoena. Now, this is one where there was a bipartisan subpoena, but to only talk about a tiny little piece of it that wasn't a threat to either of the political parties, and in particular wasn't a threat to the robber baron in chief, Zuckerberg, right? And again, we could have had all the testimony on the broad, incredible abuses at Meta. And we could have had it 5 months ago. We can do it to any day in any state legislature. Stop waiting on the congressional Democratic leadership. Stop waiting on when it's okay with the robber barons to okay the Democratic Party leadership in having hearings in Washington, because that day ain't gonna come. And in any
Bill,
event, why would you wait years to get those facts? And again, if you want to win the election, you want to bring out the facts of massive corruption and the fact that corruption kills and maims people. Because it ain't just the economy, Carville.
right, right. Well, to that point too, though, Bill, let's do a quick background for people who are just discovering you for the first time, which is possible in this, unbelievable, uh, trying to think of the pocketoxy Phil, like the same day over and over because people are so overwhelmed with information.
So
They have,
let me tell you where this comes from. So, by background, I'm a lawyer, someone who taught economics for 15 years, and a criminologist who research is elite white collar crime and corruption. So this is my stuff. But I ain't just that. As Patrick said, I was a financial regulator, and the team of us, not just Bill, but the team of us not only blew the whistle on the crimes, but we took regulatory action despite threats of criminal prosecution by the Reagan administration to shut down the epidemic of elite fraud by the robber barons that were driving not just the savings and loan crisis, but the banking crisis of that era. And I'm a Democrat. I blew the whistle on six prominent politicians, super elected, powerful elected officials. The five U.S. senators became known as the Keating Five. Keating was the robber baron, the most powerful robber baron in that era. And the Speaker of the House, Jim Wright. And the Speaker of the House is actually typically not this moron in charge now or our prior ones, the second most powerful elected official in America. What we should have, of course, been simply crushed, right? Think the Reagan administration was against us. My own party was against us, and the leadership of both the Republican and Democratic Party, for example, in the House, unanimously, every single leader of the House tried to prevent us from re-regulating the industry, and they did so in the form of supporting a petition, basically, by Charles Keating, the most notorious robber baron of the savings and loan debacle. Both parties were completely in his pocket. And still we won. And we didn't just get over 7,000 convictions in major cases, which is there is nothing like that in the not just the history of America, in the history of the world. In successful, those are felony convictions, not misdemeanors, felony convictions. But on top of that, we stopped a raging epidemic that was growing at more than 50% a year. And when you grow at more than 50% a year, it looks like this, the famous hockey stick, right? So if you wait, you're crushed. You end up with a great financial crisis if you wait 10 years. How did we win in those impossible circumstances politically? We blew the whistle. And then we went public and in plain, blunt English. We explained exactly how the politicians were aiding the frauds of the robber barons and were in the pocket of the robber barons. And we explained the catastrophe it was going to cause. And when they tried to BS it, that no, these were just misunderstood business people, people like me, spent thousands of hours with reporters when there actually were reporters. And a tiny percentage of those, like maybe 8%, were willing to be real reporters. And they wrote story after story after story. And that's the point. And we testified over and over and over again about these things. It's the drumbeat. The Germans have a saying, once is never, right? If you cannot sustain it, you know what happens in the media if it's a one-day story? It's gone, it's overwhelmed. And you know the Trump strategy is to flood the zone whenever there's bad news. But he can't do that. We can flood the zone in a flood of biblical proportions with 1,000 whistleblowers in which they are giving presentations in plain English, bluntly, just like we did, where they're not shilling to protect party elders. I went after the Democratic Party elders by name, the most powerful politicians in America. Keating infamously, did the memo, highest priority, get black, kill him dead. They sued me for $400 million in my individual capacity. They hired private detectives at least twice. They took extraordinary efforts to get me fired and bankrupted. All right? Whistleblowers are weird. We're stubborn. We are willing to do things that sane people don't do. And that is speak truth to power and to refuse to bend the knee. And now we don't have 5 or 6 whistleblowers the way we had in the savings and loan crisis. We have over 1,000 as of 6 weeks ago. And that number, as I'm pointing out, is growing enormously. And if whistleblowers are heard instead of ignored, and if their sacrifices are honored, as they should be honored, the Democratic Party leadership should be trying desperately to get whistleblowers to stand next to them at rallies and praise their stuff. Then you flood the zone. You don't have to be passive. You don't have to let the other folks. What happens in any athletic contest if one side controls the strategy and the other is simply reactive? The reactive folks get crushed. This ain't that hard to figure out. We know it can work in impossible circumstances with a literal handful of senior whistleblowers. Now we have over 1,000. And if we do this, we will have 5,000 whistleblowers who come forward between all of this and Trump's firings. And all of this we know will trap them in their lies, which will make their ability to use law as a weapon against innocent people incredibly difficult, because there'll be all of these findings and facts that they lied. And therefore, when there's discovery, and there's limited discovery even in criminal cases, you'll completely discredit the prosecutors who are using these senior officials because they know they're perjuring themselves. And the whistleblowers can deliver that as well. In a host of ways, whistleblowers provide us with just a unique advantage. And we're the only one with whistleblowers. Have you seen the clown they tried to bring on as a supposed Antifa undercover guy? You know? In a mask. I never testified or talked to the press in a mask.
Bill, let me offer this. Go ahead. Did you have one last? Because
People
I've
knew
got,
exactly who I was, where they
of
could
course.
sue me,
And by the way,
where
I
they
say
could
that
seek to destroy
right,
me,
exactly.
and such.
Look, if my friends, if you want to win the Super Bowl, you want Tom Brady on your team, right? if you want to win an NBA championship, you want Michael Jordan on your team. If you want to win a war against fascists, it's not bad to have General Eisenhower on your team, and of course, all the top brass of the anti-fascist eras of that time. If you want to defeat corruption, Bill Black is the guy to lead us with the new untouchables, who are the best of the best. Bill, there's more that we're going to talk about. I have to jump to the next call right now to be able to get this further because we're building the plane and flying it at the same time. People, please tune into this, this podcast. Everything you can do, please spread the word. Get this to everyone you can, and we'll have more and more coming out the next few days, as well as interacting with, of course, the folks from the No Kings rally. Go ahead.
We know how to win. We can win. And this is a strategy that cannot be blocked effectively. And Trump, when they try to block it, they will make it worse for themselves.
There's a reason Bill Black has been so successful throughout his career, and we need millions of people to understand that now. Bill, I'll be back in touch as soon as possible. Thank you for your time. I'm going to sign off for now, and I'll be circling back soon. Okay? Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.